I was asked if I'd find write about the Central Line, and I was very happy to do it because the Central Line is the line that goes all the way through the very middle of London. It goes through Bank, it goes through Notting Hill. And what I found is that if you travel left to right, if you go west to east on the Central Line, you travel through what looks like a kind of invisible landscape. At every station, life expectancy falls by about 2 months a minute. This is a train is crossing invisible boundaries. So in the first 4 stations, every second spent moving eastwards on the train is exactly a day off the life of the residents, of the people who live either side of the line. We're quite used to invisible landscapes. Here's one of benzene, because we're in a transport museum, so I thought it would be good to look at pollution. And on a normal map, it just looks like a map of the road system. You know, apart from the west of Scotland, you think if you live anywhere near a lot of roads and cities, you're going to get a lot of benzene. But if we draw the maps a bit differently, if we show where people live, wherever the land is, and in this case we've made London as big as the people who live in it, then you see that the greatest concentration of pollution is actually in the middle of London. It's well over the European safety levels, and the only 2 areas outside London with pollution levels as high as that are where there are oil refineries. The book's a lot about health, it's a lot about injustice and inequality, and it's also about seeing groups of people almost as a kind of as something which is organic as well. This map is showing London, where we've taken every grid square and made it large if there are many people in it, and very small if nobody lives in it. So all the parks disappear. And here it is coloured in to show the Central Line wards, the places where people live along the line that the book talks about, and also the boroughs, the different boroughs of London are coloured in different shades, to give an idea of what kind of transect, what kind of scalpel we're cutting through the city to take one look at it. This map was drawn by Ben Hennig. I'm very grateful for his help with this. And it's on the front of the book, and it highlights the areas that the book is about. You can look at the London Mapper website if you want to see more, and the Trust for London very kindly funded all of that, so make it possible for us to do this work. I've never lived in London. To me, London's a place I visited. I first went to London when I was 3 to collect my younger brother, who was being adopted from South East London. And for years after that, I thought London's where babies came from. I knew because I'd been to London and I'd got babies. That brother was the one in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm the shy one at the back. The book's all about personal stories. Largely imaginary stories to try to make statistics interesting, but they're based on facts. And here are some facts of the first 4 stations along the line from the west to the east. And they show you a similar pattern. GCSE scores going down, poverty rates going up. And in general we have these landscapes that we move through but we can't see. The line as a whole looks like a kind of valley, where if you look at children, there are high numbers of children to the west and almost as high numbers of children to the east. And in the middle, in Tottenham Court Road, there's a valley where there are almost no children. Why are there more children to the west than the east? Well, school league tables. Here's the GCSE scores, and you can see they're generally a bit higher in the west, they go down in the middle, and then once you get out towards Essex they're going high again. Now in fact these are incredibly good GCSE scores. London does very well, but they worry people. Here's another landscape. This is the landscape of income. It may not be what you expected. You may have thought it would be higher in Notting Hill and be more undulating, but it's not that different east and west. What really is important is in those tiny wards around the City of London, it just goes astronomical, just floats off. But the small differences in income are big enough to make big differences in things like voting. So here you can see where the Tory party get more votes than the Labour party when the lines are above the axis, and then when Labour win, the lines are below. And so it goes Tory, marginal, Labour, Tory, Labour, no votes in the city, then Labour and Tory again. Child poverty. Most people know about the East End of London, about the poverty rates being high around about Bethnal Green and Mile End. But far fewer people know about the poverty rates being so high around White City and Shepherd's Bush, around where the BBC are. It's quite an interesting pattern. There are kind of 2 centres of poverty along the line. And then if you look at something like life expectancy, again people know about this incredible drop in life expectancy from Liverpool Street down to the east. But there's just as big a drop from Lancaster Gate down to Holborn, or from Hanger Lane down to Shepherd's Bush. So you're looking at a kind of roller coaster of life chances as you go along the Central Line. And every variable, every aspect is a little bit different. Here's bankers. Out to the west, less than 1% of people are bankers. It's just over to Hanger Lane, and then you have this big rise up to 5% at Notting Hill Gate. But what really pleased me is the highest proportion of bankers are found around Bank Station itself at around 8%. The book was written a few months ago, and since then more data has come out. Alex Singleton at the University of Liverpool has produced tens of thousands of maps of the 2011 census, and here's one of Kensington and Chelsea showing you precisely where bankers are. And in the very dark blue areas, you're odds on if you meet a man, he's most probably a banker. I wish I could have talked about areas off the line. These are the wards along the line, the areas that I've looked at in detail and people's lives in them. But if you look just north of the line, you've got Harrow on the Hill, you've got Southall just beneath it, all these kind of other places that are incredibly interesting that it would have been nice to divert to. To the west, you've got Dalston. I'd love to talk about Dalston. You've got the Isle of Dogs. You've got many people who are missing from this story. But the story itself, the number of people who live along the wards, just along those 32 stops, is about 500,000 people. It's similar to the population of the city of Sheffield, just living along one London tube map. And where next? What to do next? Well, there's a similar line going through Manhattan, going through Wall Street, which is tempting. But what I'd really like to do is I'd like to take it out to the Essex and to the Loop and to Grange Hill and to Epping, because I think some really interesting things are going on along the 16, 17 stops that I haven't covered in the book. Thank you very much.